Welcome to Impact Investing TV show.
We show you solutions to global environmental and social challenges to inspire you for actions towards the SDGs.
You will also learn the best way to invest your money and create impact while making profit.
Let's discover impact investing world and true sustainability right now. Hi, and welcome to Swiss Impact with Banerjee. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope that the year started well for all of you.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be back with Ben, of course. And today we start season 6, dedicated to impact investments in times of crisis. And there are some other good news that today, exactly 2 years ago, we started the first season with episode 1. So congratulations to you, to me, to everyone who was watching us till then. Today is the show's second birthday, and we're a bit younger than our son, actually.
It's true. And congratulations. We have received so many amazing reactions from all over the world from our audience. Thank you for supporting us and watching us. And impact investment seems to be today the only action which seems to be bringing light to the ever darkening world. So we will dedicate this season to all impactful businesses and funds who are making positive difference.
And if you're a business or impact investing fund seeking for funding or outreach branding in impact investing field, then feel free to contact us at apply@iisolutions.ch. So now let's start with the tradition, your story, Ben.
Okay, so thanks. My latest idea. Everywhere I talk, I notice lately that people seem to be losing the habit of thinking in systems, or what we say, connecting the dots, including at universities and academic institutions. Everyone is thinking in silos. And if someone dares to think in systems or outside the silos, then usually he or she ends up in the wrong side of the media.
Wait. What do you mean by silos? Thinking like about your industry only, or just thinking about yourself? Just explain the terms used.
So when I say silos, that means economists think of their economies, politicians of their political gains, scientists are limited to thinking of the scientific circle, and businesses, of course, of their quarterly revenue.
Okay. But you must know by now that in today's world, everything is interconnected.
Yes, especially in today's world, no one is paying attention to the larger picture. And in movement, this change is also being encouraged and accelerated by the social media. Like you have the trends like cancel culture, which is spreading like wildfire, and even the academics are participating in it and are part of it. And that is the reason why our ecological, environmental, economical, political, and social systems today are all stretched to the edge of collapse. So that's why we are hearing more and more from different groups, systemic reset.
I like that. Let's reset the system for 2023. Thank you, Ben, for sharing this story. And long story short, let's welcome our today's guest who has been on our shows before. It is Mr. Martin Palmer, the founding president and CEO of Fate Invest. Martin, where are you? Hello. Hi.
Happy New Year. Happy Western New Year. And now, of course, happy Chinese New Year of the rabbit. Doesn't sound very powerful, does it? The rabbit. It's the dragon or the tiger, but
exactly,
it has a very honored position in Chinese mythology. So it's a good year.
Well, I must reveal I am actually the rabbit as per Chinese horoscope. Yes.
Well,
so it's my year. Yippee!
12 years. I don't think it's coming up to your 60th birthday.
Not yet.
We won't go any further than that.
Let's guess the audience. Let's keep it there.
And guess what I am? Monkey.
Oh, you're a monkey. Well, now I could comment, but it would be unseemly. I'm a snake. That's an even
Oh.
more difficult one to live
Well,
with.
what an inspiring constellation here. Monkey, snake, and rabbit discussing impact investments all together. Amazing, Martin. Welcome back. And today we know that you are going to present for everyone your new Multifaith Just Transition Fund. And before we start, I also still want to introduce you to people who missed the first and second episode with you. So, Martin Palmer, you have been a Secretary General of the Alliance of Religions and Conservation, so-called ARC, founded by His Excellency Prince Philip in 1995, and is an international specialist. I mean, you are an international specialist in all major faiths and religious traditions and cultures. You've written more than 20 books on religious and environmental topics, and also translated even to Chinese some texts. Wow. You are also a regular contributor to BBC, so the TV, other TV shows, and preacher in the Church of England. You've been working with the faiths on their investment program since 2001, and I hope you could achieve enormous impact in transforming their assets.
Before we start, I'm just very curious. How can you be an expert on all the faiths? People have enough problems trying to be expert on one.
It's a very good question, Ben. I've worked with all the major faiths for over 45 years. In various ways, first of all in education, and then with His Royal Highness Prince Philip since 1985. We worked together. I was his religious advisor on the environment until the day he died. The day he died, I was writing back to reply to him about a project in China. He died last year. 2 years ago, of course, now. My approach has always been, Ben, and it works. I know enough when I go to meet a major religious community to ask a vaguely intelligent question. And people love to tell you about their faith. So if you've asked a question which shows that you know enough, that you know a kind of a key quote or a key tenet in the faith or a key historical moment in the faith, that unlocks. So I've had this great privilege that for 45 years, I've had some of the most wonderful, some of the most mediocre, and occasionally some of the most slightly disturbing characters in the world of religions telling me a great deal. And I have a quite good memory I'm fascinated by religion. I'm religious myself. And I know the power of that faith for both good and for bad. Some of the greatest saints have come from the faith, and some of the worst dictators and worst people have come from the faiths. Perhaps not as many as have come from ideologies like communism and fascism, but nevertheless, we have our dark side. But no, I've been enormously fortunate, and also my job has often been to sit with a faith and to say, that's marvelous. So if you believe that, would that mean, for example, that you would want to restore forest land, or you would want to protect water sources, or you would want to avoid the use of endangered species in your traditional medicines? So my job has always been to work with people with what they've told me about what they believe, draw out of that what their values are, and then try and wed that with them, not for them, with them, to what that would mean in terms of environment, in terms of sustainability. And now with their assets, part of it is saying to the faith, look, you've all come up with wonderful statements on the environment, on sustainability, on climate, on social justice, etc. There isn't a faith that hasn't made some kind of very progressive statement.
Yeah.
What they tended to ignore, and we touched on this last time, is that the faiths are also stakeholders. So the traditional
big ones, right?
Big ones, enormous ones, Sveta, absolutely enormous ones. So instead, and the role of Faith Invest is to say, we know you have these values, and we know you want the world to be a better place. Well, why don't you use the bits of the world you own, or control like 50% of all schools, a third of all universities, a third of all hospitals, and possibly being the fifth largest investing group in the world, and a major investor in forests, why don't you use that to show what would happen if you lived a value-led life based on profound beliefs, which we can check? We can go to the Quran, we can go to the Bible, we can go to the Bhagavad Gita, go to the Tao Te Ching, whatever it is. We can show this is what you say is important. Now show us how that actually works out in practice.
Wow.
Well, I love that, like taking them by hand and showing, right? Where is the next step if you believe? Amazing. Martin, we wanted to ask you also to briefly introduce the Faith Invest and the story behind it, because some people who didn't watch, they don't know what Faith Invest is actually doing. So if you could briefly.
Very briefly. So Faith Invest was created in 2019. In fact, we were registered as a charity on Christmas Eve 2019. So we then plunged into COVID, which didn't help. But our goal is a very simple one at one level, to be honest. It is to say to the faiths, you are investors. By what criteria do you invest? Now, there's a long tradition of faiths with a negative screening policy. Quakers, nothing to do with armaments, Methodists, nothing to do with alcohol, Muslims, nothing to do with usury, and so on and so forth. And what we've said to the faiths is, we know what you're against. What are you for? What is it that you want to invest in to create the kind of world that your teachings, your sacred texts, your values say is what the gods or God or the divine want to see on earth? So it's really saying, give us your vision and we'll help you to see how you might actually have the tools in what you own, the assets you have, the influence you have, to actually be one of the major forces enabling those changes to happen, economically, spiritually, psychologically, culturally. Is that enough?
Okay.
I think it's perfect.
Now coming to the main point. So what exactly is Multifaith Just Transition Fund and what is it doing?
Okay, it's a very interesting program. So let me break it down. Multifaith. Faith Invest works with every major faith. We are not interested in getting them all to sign one overarching statement because, and I quote the Pope here, Pope Francis, he has this wonderful phrase about the faiths. He says, all the faiths have their own treasures. And what working together should mean is that we share the insights that those treasures bring, the wonder that those treasures bring. We don't want to make them all the same. We want to celebrate the wonderful diversity because we know that there is no one model that is going to get us out of this crisis. We need a pluralism of possible ways of thinking and doing things. And one of the things that the Multifaith Just Transition Fund is going to be doing and has already started doing is going back to the faiths and saying, what is your actual understanding of the role of economics? Because economics has fooled us into thinking it's a science. It's not a science. It is simply a toolkit. The question is, it's the toolkit for what? The only thing that determines what that toolkit is for are the values that you bring to why you want to use it. So at the moment, we have a deeply selfish, and you're right there, Ben, siloed world in which fund managers just want to make as much money as possible.
Yep.
Whereas the faiths want the money to be working for their community. The faiths are not, they're neither public nor private. We don't have shareholders in the faith investment world. We have communities. We invest for communities. We invest so that the schools can keep running, the hospitals can keep running. We can do the welfare. We can look after refugees. We can feed the hungry. All those sort of images that are beautifully captured for Christianity in the Magnificat, this wonderful hymn of praise that Mary sings when she knows that she is going to give birth to the Savior, to Christ, in which the rich are torn down, the poor are fed, etc. It's a wonderful vision of a just world. So we're working with the faith, saying, in many cases, you've run economies for hundreds, in some cases, thousands of years. what were the principles on which you did that? So, for example, in China, the Taoists, when we started working with them, they went back to the fact that they actually ran a large chunk of China at the end of the 2nd century AD, when the Han Dynasty was collapsing, and they created a handbook on how to run a republic. And in it, no usury, you look after the stranger, you care for the refugee, you ensure that everybody has equal opportunity for education, you have funds that are available so people can start new businesses, etc. It's all there. And yet it's been lost for the last 400 or 500 years because Western models of economics and power came in. So we're helping the faiths to rediscover and rearticulate their vision. So Islam is not a capitalist structure. You don't keep capital in Islam. You have to investing.
If we talk about the fund, right? So in which sector precisely would the fund be investing? Like finance, environment, or social justice, infrastructure? What exactly are the sectors of the fund?
That has yet to be finally defined. Essentially, at the moment, what we're doing is saying to the faiths, what is it you see as being just and transition? Because we're basing this on the work that we've done collectively with the Climate Investment Fund, established by the World Bank, headed by the amazing Mafalda Duarte, who approached us about 3 years ago and went, I've only just discovered that the faiths have money. And we're going, yeah, that's quite a lot, actually. And she said, this is amazing. We and the Climate Investment Fund is big infrastructure, very big infrastructure, but it's also leverage. And she said, do you think the faiths could come and create a fund with us that would enable them to invest at scale in order to leverage sort of 10 times what they put in coming in from other sources? And we went, yeah, well, ask. And the response from some of the really, really big, and we were talking here of funds of, 80 to 100 billion, have said, yeah, okay, we're interested, because they haven't got the time or the interest in going into a small or medium investment program, 50 million or 100 million. They are interested in 1 billion, where they could actually see a real impact. And Climate Investment Fund has a 12, 13-year record of achieving this. So at the moment, we are in a research phase. We launched this officially at COP27 in Egypt last November. We're now going into a research phase with our colleagues at the World Bank, our colleagues within the UN, our colleagues also within groups like the Islamic Development Bank, who are very interested in working with us on this. And we're talking to some of the really big faith investors to say, help us define what this should be. So we're in a definition period. But at the same time, what we're also discovering, having announced this, is that there are a number of our faith partners, groups like the Lutheran World Federation, World Evangelical Alliance, some of the big Buddhist groups, the new Muslim program called Al-Mizan, which means the balance, which is their kind of version of what the Pope did, crystallizing the core teachings of a faith. They've done that for Islam. We're working there with the Muslim Union of Indonesia to explore, okay, you're all wanting to set up funds, green waqf within Islam, within Buddhist networks, green funds that are determined by Buddhist teachings. What if, under the Multifaith Just Transition Fund, those funds came together? They're quite small individually, 50, 100, 200 million, but collectively, they could actually have a real contribution along with the very big funders to make a fund that could actually then look long term. And I suppose, Sveta, one of the key things of this in the faith is that we invest long term. 25 years is the norm for a faith investment. And therefore, there is a patience. There is a patience. These things,
a lot of it, right?
A lot of patience. We've been around a long time. We've outlived
thousands of years.
We've outlived every dynasty. We've outlived every empire, including the British, which was a little bit of a shock to the British, I'll be honest. But, these things happen. So we're going to be around for the long term. And I think one of the important things about just transition is there is a great danger of people rushing into, say, climate change investment, which is we must all switch to alternatives. Yes, we need to switch. But we've also got to recognize that there are entire communities who we have built up and who have worked for us in producing energy from fossil fuels. What's their future? What do we give them? What are the new trades, the new skills that they can have? You can't just dump entire communities in the name of saving the rest of the world, because basically, if you betray one group, why are you going to be trusted on anything else? So that notion of just transition is crucial, and that takes time. We are talking of a generational change, and the faiths are good at that. We know that real change takes time. There's a parable that Jesus tells of a sower who goes out to sow, and he sows the seed, and some of the seed falls on rocks with a little bit of soil, and the seeds, they spring up immediately, but there's no roots, and they die. And others get eaten by the birds, others get trampled into the earth by people passing, and a few land in good soil, and they take time, and they put down roots, and they produce the crop. That's our approach towards just transition. If we aren't dealing with the whole package, then it's not worth it.
I mean, I completely agree. Good things take time. I mean, look at whiskey. You put it in, it takes 18 to 25 years before it has some taste. And your kids have gone up to the university by then.
Yes, I had a friend at university who decided to lay down port for when he hadn't got any children, but for when his children got married. And he laid it down in his room at Cambridge. It lasted a week. Because saying to me, you've got to try it, you've got to try it. So I think it takes a lot of commitment to actually do things thoroughly on the long term.
I mean, I understand when you said that you are now in the definition phase, but what is the kind of timeline you have in your mind?
When can we invest, or some people, pension funds or whoever of faith, when can they jump on the boat of your fund?
Our aspiration is that in 18 months' time, we will be fully registered, fully set up. It may take us a little longer after that to get all the staffing in place. And Faith Invest's role is, we're not going to run this. This is not going to be a branch of Faith Invest. This isn't my pension fund. This is going to be something that will be independent. It will be independent from the World Bank. World Bank is being enormously helpful, done a huge amount of the legal work for us all. We're bringing in a whole range of partners into this, philanthropies, as well as faith groups, to really explore it. But it will be independent. It will be a new structure. But it will be a structure that is highly responsive to the long-term expectations of the faiths. It is, and I've been in the environmental movement a very, very long time, and I have heard that we've got 5 years before everything falls apart for probably the last 35 years. And yes, we need a sense of urgency, but urgency can be the enemy of thoroughness. And this is designed to be thorough. And at one level, you could argue the most conservative forces in the world are fund managers and the religions. Put them two together, and you've really got some fairly conservative people. But we are beginning to see that they are recognizing something that you've been saying time and time again on your program. Long-term financial success requires a sustainable program, not a get-rich-quick program. It's got to be sustainable. It's got to be environment. It's got to be socially just. If it's got that, it will survive the upheavals we go through, because people will trust it. And that's what we're building, is that notion of trust. But yes, I would say within 18 months to 2 years, we will be in existence, or it will be in existence. It will be pooling all kinds of different resources from the faiths, and it will be working.
How much money do you expect to put in the fund?
The initial fund, the initial budget that we've agreed with Mafalda and her team at Climate Investment Fund is 10 billion. That's the
10
start.
billion.
10 billion. And we are looking already for concessionary investors. So, for example, UAE and Japan have in the past indicated they would be very interested to come in through their grant aid. And that's a whole other dimension we're working with. All the major religions have development agencies, which are charities. And we're saying to them, in fact, we're holding a meeting in mid-May in the UK with all the major religious development agencies. We're saying, look, it's great that you give grants, but grants effectively create servitude. They create people who are utterly dependent on your whim. And most of them are for 3 years, and then you might get another 2 years if you're lucky. Why not put aside 10 to 15% of money you'd give away anyway as grants, as investment in investing in people creating business plans, doing due diligence, which costs time and money, but nobody puts that money in. So we're hoping that the religious development world will come in as concessionary investors. It's money they'd have given away anyway. They don't expect a return.
Right.
If 1 in 100 of the projects they help come into being a proper entrepreneurial venture makes a profit, bingo, they got more money than they would have had otherwise. So that's one factor. The philanthropies are another area, and you've already seen philanthropies coming together in clusters in order to be more effective. We're opening the door to them. But the heart of this is the faith themselves, putting their money where their mouth is and actually putting in enough that we can change the way economics works.
Yeah. Then I just want to say that this change is already going, for example, in a lot of public sector. You have this large government organizations which do grants. There are also changes like this is going on, that instead of giving grants, which they have done the last 25, 30 years, they find out it doesn't work. It creates, like you yourself said, servitude. So they are also moving towards investment, but it's still a very, very slow process.
It is. But my sense here, Ben, is that if I look back to when we started in 2001, beginning to talk to the faiths about their financial wealth and their assets generally, land, buildings, education, health, the idea that you could actually create a fund that the faiths would then want to invest in to make a substantial difference was pie in the sky. What has happened since then is we've had the SDGs, and the SDGs are absolutely frank. It's not going to be grants and grant aid or charity. It's going to be investment that is going to make the planet sustainable and livable for all creatures, not just human beings. We've seen groups like BlackRock give instructions that there must be a criteria of impact. There must be a criteria of responding to environmental and social and sustainability issues. We've seen groups like the Climate Investment Fund coming into existence with the World Bank, very much in order to leverage, rather than to move in as the World Bank used to do and dismantle local economic structures and say, no, it's got to be part of the bigger scene and leaving, creating havoc in many cases. And I think we've also seen the philanthropies, as you've indicated, the philanthropies are also beginning to think, well, wait a minute, we've been pouring money in, but we've not built an infrastructure. We've not built an economic infrastructure. We may have built a staffing model. So suddenly a charity in Zambia is able to do 30 times as much. But once the grants go away, it doesn't go back to where it was. It collapses. So we need to be looking for different models. I think we're in a different mindset, but we are still very frightened. It's as though we're trying to walk on ice, and all we can see are the cracks. Whereas actually, if we wait a little longer, the ice will get thicker and we can all walk across it. I'm not sure that's a very good image, but never mind.
Martin, some more details about the fund. I'm still stuck in that,
She's an ex-banker, so of
and
course.
I'm sure some portfolio managers also need to know that. So did you already define like minimum investment size, like from which amount institutions could participate? And also, where are you going to invest? Like for projects on other side, who could apply for the money? What would be the main criteria?
Well, originally, Very good questions. Originally, the plan was that this would be only mega projects. This would be, for example, a project that is being discussed is with the Mormons, the Church of Latter-day Saints in Utah. They own 40% of Utah. They have a huge investment portfolio. They are beginning to look at what they can do with that investment portfolio. So we're working on a scheme to build the largest single solar farm in the world that could potentially provide a huge amount of energy right across the states. Now, that's the scale that we're talking about.
So
Now,
no startups, they can forget about your fund, right? Right from the beginning.
no, because what has happened since is that whilst there is that mega vision, because so many of the faiths are wanting to set up funds, we're basically saying, well, why don't we provide an umbrella within which your particular fund, which reflects your particular religious values, can function, but doesn't have to function alone. You don't have to have the whole infrastructure of a fund, and you don't have to outhouse it either to some fund manager who is only interested in the money. Bring it in within the Multifaith Just Transition Fund, or possibly we're going to rename it Multifaith Just Transition Funds. That would then enable us to work at scale on small and medium, and we're about to publish a white paper on small scale faith investors below $500 million who have tended to be ignored, but collectively could actually be a major force for change. And we're working with many smaller funds who are looking for some sort of structure that enables them to keep their own identity and their autonomy, but are more effective than trying to do a little 50 million fund by themselves. So we are beginning to expand it. It is becoming, we're creating in a sense a sense that things are possible. And people are coming to us and saying, well, would this be possible? So we're going through this process of discernment. But it is from the mega to the medium, not the small, mega to the medium. And therefore, yeah, we will be looking, obviously the mega projects would tend to be with international institutions or national governments or national networks. The smaller ones, the medium scale, those we are hoping and we're beginning to see will actually come from the faiths themselves. They've been supporting a lot of projects that could become entrepreneurial. That's scale, and that can be to scale as well. So it is early days, Sveta. When I can come back to you and tell you exactly how much and exactly what categories they are, it probably won't be me because I'm a storyteller. It will be one of my financial team.
You had it with me, eh?
They'll go, yes, you had Martin, didn't you? Let me tell you what we're actually doing.
No, definitely this I want to suggest anywhere for you to come in 18 months and say, hey, now it's there, right? But I hope to have you at our TV show also before for some storytelling because I love that.
But one of the issues I see here is that when you have different faiths and different believers investing in your fund, would they also have a say on it? And because, in many ways, like you said, all the faiths have common points, but there are also things in which the faiths have different points, varying points.
Very different points. That's a very good question, Ben. The truth is that with the exception of some of the really large funds, most of the religious funds are outhoused already. And they're outhoused to fund managers. So you have faith-based asset owners will then have a very small staff. I mean, quite seriously, one of the biggest shocks we got was realizing how funds of even $1 billion might only have, one person part-time. So it's been outhoused already. So they're used to handing it over. What we're doing with each faith is we're saying, give us guidelines. Go back to your core beliefs. Work on those. Tell us what those beliefs are. Tell us, therefore, what your values are. Having worked that out, tell us how you're going to apply those values in your teachings. It's what we call the Zug guidelines, because the first time we did this with nearly 50 faith investment groups around the world was in Zug in 2017. And to our amazement, almost all the faiths we invited said, wow, we've never thought about doing this. Yes, let's do that. And now we're working with something like 140 different faith investment groups around the world at different levels, some en masse through big programs that we run with the Vatican on religious orders and their investment portfolios, some detailed one-to-one programs where we work specifically with the faith tradition and we dig down with them into what they believe, why they exist, what was their inspiration when they were founded, how do those values now shape what they do, what do they want to see in a better world, and then we go helping them to find funds to invest in. Our hope is that the Multifaith Just Transition Fund will be a kind of one-stop shop for that, because it will be reflecting in its criteria the diversity of faiths, including the diversity of what people ban, but also what they want to see. Because one of the dangers is when you only concentrate on what you ban, it's as though everything else is okay, but it's not. So in Islam's a good example. In Islam, under Sharia law, there is no ban on fossil fuels, because historically, when in the 9th and 10th century, Sharia law on what is haram, what is forbidden under Islamic law for business, fossil fuels were irrelevant. There was no role. They were used as kind of a bit of a magic thing, you know. So simply saying we know what we're against is not enough. What you now need is a screen to say, but what is it that we want to see happen? Not just what can we get a better return on. So it's that shift that it's happening. It's challenging for some groups. It requires looking for new fund managers, and we have an index of fund managers that our faiths have said, yeah, they really get what we're trying to say. But we need bigger structures that can actually move capital at speed, but with proper due diligence and proper partnership. Not every faith would want to invest in every single project that would be invested in by the Multifaith Just Transition Fund. There would be a choice board for what you want to support. And we are working on creating a faith consistent index of faith consistent investments that are already out there. We hope to launch that by the end of this year. It's a complicated scene, but at the heart of it, and this is where I come in, my side is faith, at the heart of it, to be absolutely honest, with the exception of philanthropies, there is no other sector of the investment world that has core values that cannot be changed. They can be developed, but they cannot be changed. I love listening to, you know, people pontificating in the general financial world about value-driven investing, and you think, yes, but you don't have any values. Your values, you're not interested in values. You've never espoused values. So where are these values coming from? Have you got a kind of a handbook of values you can borrow? Whereas
I love that.
yeah, the faiths have it. You go read the Quran, you read the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, it's there. It's got to be applied.
Yeah, I see there are a lot of challenges on the way, but with your faith, it will be done. I have no doubt at all. Now, Martin, how can our audience, which is mainly consisting of financial institutions, academical institutes, or businesses, participate and help you during these 18 months? Maybe there is something they can also do for you.
We would love to have some research partners with us to delve deep and to help us to create the range of white papers we want to produce that will articulate this. We are also very interested in any particularly any groups which we see the faiths as belonging to the third sector. We're neither public nor private. We're third sector. We invest for communities, which is what philanthropists do. It's what big educational institutions do. So any group like that is thinking, you know, we'd like to go to scale on this, and we could come in. We're particularly looking for groups that will come in as concessionary investors at the beginning, so that we can get started and we can bring the more timid in. Now, we've got a couple of possible concessionary, and that's where, for example, the religious development agencies could be immensely significant. They're not huge. It would be fairly modest. I mean, I'd be delighted if we had $500 million that came in from that source, but it would be indicative of a change of mind, which is important. So I think we're looking for those who'd be willing to come in at a concessionary level, but then I think we're also looking for a sense of the scale of possibility for a just transition fund. And that means we're looking for groups who don't just have a single issue. They're not just climate, and they're not just land restoration, and they're not just welfare, but have an overarching vision of the fact that what we need is a complete overhaul, but an overhaul that works at the pace that people can change, not at the level. I'm a scholar of China, and China modeled itself on the Soviet Union, and it did 5-year economic plans, and it destroyed the agriculture of China, destroyed the industry of China, it destroyed the people of China. And they have been trying to work out to come out of that short-term thinking ever since. And we work a lot with the Taoists and the Buddhists in China on their role in the new sort of economics, although it's been stalled obviously by COVID. But we need people who do not think that they have the ideal plan so long as everybody did what they said. We want people who say, we want partners who can work with us to have a bigger vision, and that this is something we're in for the long haul. That's the heart of it. So please be in touch, but please don't ask me for money.
That's pretty clear. Not yet. Huh?
Not yet. Not yet. But because people kind of think, oh, this means we can get to the faith's money. No, you can't.
Well, 10 billions, you say the numbers, and everyone's thinking, wow, okay, cool.
Exactly.
Maybe I am eligible.
We are open to serious possibility of funds that the faiths can invest in. But increasingly, the faiths are saying, do you know, we're not going to wait for somebody to come up with something for us. We're going to create it for ourselves. And so part of Faith Invest's role is to be the meeting place for faith groups that are saying, well, if they can't provide it for us, we'll create it and invite other groups to join us and invest with us, because we've got a good investment record based on, say, Catholic teaching or on Buddhist teaching. We can provide a values-based framework. And when people say to me, you know, you're a Christian, how can you work with other faiths? My answer has always been, I know how faith can shape your life. And I know, therefore, that real people who really have a faith are shaped by that. And I celebrate the fact that we now increasingly can be side by side, using that vision, that sense that we have something unique to give the world, because we are people of faith. Faith can be seen as a crutch, or it can be seen as a bicycle. And I like the image of a bicycle. It's how we move the world at a pace that is manageable.
Amazing.
We are again running out of time, Martin. It is always amazing. Can you please book the next 6 weeks with us?
We still have a lot to discuss.
We had so many
with you.
questions, but
We do. But thank you once again for
It's
this.
not over. Wait. One more thing we want to ask you
Yeah.
to share.
Call to action for our global audience.
Do you mean about this or generally? Oops, am I still there? Oh, yes,
No,
I am.
all good. You're just in the now. You're the star of the TV show to share your call to action. Yes.
Yeah, the call to action is very straightforward in a way. It is go back to why you do what you do. And if it's purely to make personal profit, please jump off the screen now. If what you do is because you actually have a sense that it is possible to build a better world for everything, for all life on earth, for people, for communities, a sustainable world, then please stay on. And if that's what you want to do, join us in this journey for really value-driven investing, and come with us on that journey. Come with us in terms of showing what you're already doing. Tell us your stories. We need stories that inspire us. People say, I mean, we've got some wonderful stories of what some of the faiths are doing. And when we show it to people, they go, Oh, oh, I never thought of doing. Oh, yeah, no, we could do that. Yes, we could do that. So tell us your success stories. Tell us how you've made things different. Join us in that journey, and particularly join us in encouraging any faith group that you are a fund manager for or that you're a member of to think about how they can become faith consistent investors, and ask them, are you faith consistent in the way you invest? And if they kind of go, well, we just got to maximize profit, say, actually, no, talk to Faith Invest, and we will be delighted to hear from them.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
It's the first time I saw you so serious.
Well, yes. I do think humor is a very important part of life, but there we are.
Martin, thanks so much for being our esteemed and first guest of 2023. It's really amazing. So let's leave 2023 with faith. This is what I encourage
Exactly.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. And I mean, on that basis, it can only obviously get better if you don't have me. So it's been a pleasure. As always, a
Meet you
pleasure.
soon.
Bless you both. God bless you both. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Dear viewers, with this we finish the first episode of season 6, and next week we will be back with another amazing guest. If you like our program or want to learn more about impactful funds, businesses, and experts, then subscribe to YouTube channel or watch us on smart TVs and podcasts.
And we invite all impactful businesses who are seeking investment or support to our TV show so that they can receive the support and find other resources.
Right.
It's not hard to act.
Just give your heart to impact. Bye for
Bye
now.
for now.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Impact Investing TV show. Make sure you subscribe to our channel not to miss any future episodes.
Leave us some feedback and get in touch with us if you want to be our next TV show guest.
And find us on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, and any of your favorite social media places.
And join the awesome Impact community. We look forward to sharing the next episode with you. And remember, it's not hard to act.
Just give your heart to impact.